This is going to get a little bit weird, but we're going to get into math. And not just any math, but fake math. So, I don't know, just like pull up your socks and brace yourself, because here we go, kids. This is the Socratic Ducky, Chapter 10. Again, free digital download of this book is available at abitoforange.com. Go to free books, but also you'll find a link to Amazon if you want to buy the paperback version of it. Chapter 10 is Fake Math and the Flying Spaghetti Monster, the exclusivity of truth. If you've been learning along with the previous metaphysical lessons, chapters 1 through 8, you know that I've been attempting to prove the existence of objective truth as outlined in the metaphysical map. If you haven't been, you probably think I'm on powerful drugs, which are not necessarily prescription. But let me assure you all that I know exactly what I'm talking about. I am talking about truth! And part of the reason I'm talking about truth is because I wish to tell you about Jesus. It's not as much of a stretch as you might think to go from metaphysical principles of objective truth to a Jewish carpenter who claimed to be God. In a sense, it's impossible to talk about one without the other. But before I get into all that, I need to address one of the popular modern criticisms against Christianity. All right, we're going to take just a brief break. Gonna put on some chapstick. I'm going to drink myself a little bit of coffee. I'm here for you. I do this for you, you know, because I love you. Now let's pretend I'm just mid-flow here in the middle of this chapter. Let's talk about the metaphysical map again real quick, just in case maybe you're new to this. So the metaphysical map is this collection of words and arrows in the middle of the screen there. And if you're on podcast, you'll have to just look this up, but I'll describe it. So in the upper left hand, we have God. So this has to be the God of the Bible, because what God creates, which is indicated by that arrow, is what I here call reality, but I should have called creation, by which I mean physical and spiritual creation. God made the angels. He made our souls. He made time, space, matter, and energy, the galaxies and stars and planets and trees and ducks and rubber and the rubber that we form into the shape of ducks. So that is the reality that exists around us, both physical and spiritual. So it is creation. God is real, but he makes the reality that we exist, which is his creation, that we're part of and that we experience. So we perceive the reality. That's why the reality has to come first, so we have something to perceive. And we either perceive it accurately or inaccurately, and that's why perception splits off between truth and illusion. Because either we perceive it as it is, and our perception matches the reality, and therefore we perceive truth, or our perception is different than the reality, and so we perceive an illusion. And whichever one we perceive, that's our experience. So those perceptions over time is how we are experiencing whatever time, place, day event. All right. So we're going to talk about the nature of truth in this particular chapter. But before I get into that, I need to address one of the popular modern criticisms against Christianity. If you've seen anyone talking about Christianity as a faith on television or social media, whether it's Oprah, the national news, or some random biology professor pushing his latest book on theology because he thinks all he needs to write an informed book on the subject is a British accent, roll my eyes, you've heard someone attack Christianity for being, quote, arrogant, on account of making, quote, exclusive truth claims, which is just the idea that, quote, opposing viewpoints are, quote, wrong. These, quote, arguments, it seems to me, are, quote, foolish, because they lack the, quote, thought to realize how, quote, self-defeating they, quote, are. That and I, quote, enjoy putting, quote, things in quotes, quote. I'm going to admit that's more entertaining to read than it is to say out loud. Yes, I admit up front that Christianity claims to be true. Before I move on, let's consider any religion that did not make that claim. Imagine they come to your door and invite you to their worship service center. Man opens the door. Good afternoon, sir or madam. As a member of the local congregation of the faithful followers of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, I would like to invite you to our regular worship services at our worship service center and coffee bar. The Flying Spaghetti Monster? What is that? The Flying Spaghetti Monster, or FSM for short, or sometimes I call him Bruce, is the creator of the universe and a creature of pure love. He is a huge pile of spaghetti and meatballs. He can fly. That's the name. And he's invisible and in all other ways undetectable by modern science. Yet with his magical love powers, Bruce can make things like trees or chipmunks. Come worship with us. You believe the universe was made by a giant flying pile of spaghetti. Oh, no, I don't. My friend Todd says he does, but I'm pretty sure he's kidding. Our doctrine and dogma are all just ridiculous. I can't imagine anyone believing this stuff. You don't believe your own religion is true? No, of course not. It's pasta, for heaven's sake. How would invisible pasta make anything? Even if it is really loving, which I don't think pasta can be either. So, you want me to come worship something that you don't even think is true? Yes. Why would I do that? Because with your regular financial contributions, you get a discount card, which is good at our coffee bar. It's pretty good coffee. I have to get back to playing Guitar Hero now. And scene. Thank you. I'll be here all week. Tip your wait staff. The next step to this objection is equally poor. They attack Christians because we claim that any ideas, religions, or philosophies which disagree with Christianity's teachings are untrue. It is called arrogant to claim that just because an idea opposes the truth, that it must therefore be wrong. If you're like me, you're saying to yourself, maybe these people need to look up the word arrogant at dictionary.com. Maybe I'll do that. Typity type, here's what it says. Marked by or arising from a feeling or assumption of one's superiority towards others. But what does the dictionary say about the idea of true? Being in accordance with the actual state or conditions, conforming to reality or fact, not false. Well, crud! It looks like, by simple definition, true and false are opposites. It doesn't strain credulity to then say anything opposed to what is true is, by definition, false. So if I can combine these ideas, this argument against Christians would be as such. Christians think ideas opposed to true ideas are false because they assume themselves to be superior to other people. No, that can't be what they mean. That's ridiculous. Maybe they mean this. We believe Christians consider themselves to be superior to other people because they think true ideas as not false, and false ideas are not true. Maybe we've just discovered that these people need to stay off the drugs, which aren't necessarily prescription. While we might not think to say so, we all know that to state something to be true, you have to believe that all opposing views are false. When you look up and say, the sky is blue right now, you are also saying that any claim of the sky being a different color to be false. In other words, wrong. By saying it is blue, you are also saying it is not green or purple or yellow. By saying something is, you are already saying something else is not. If I were to hold out my hand and say, I have a rubber duck in this hand, it would imply that anyone who stated or believed that I did not have a rubber duck in that hand was wrong. It doesn't need to be said. By stating a truth claim, you have already said that opposing views are wrong. This isn't rocket science. By that, of course, I mean that anyone who claims that this is rocket science is wrong. You see how easy this is? All right, to show how simple and universally applicable this is, I will bring in a little old school fake math. I'm not saying anything for certain, but this might be on the test. So if you wanted to take notes, might be a good idea. In case a pop quiz were to happen tomorrow, wink wink. So let's let X represent the Christian worldview. The Christian worldview equals X. So the Christian would say X equals truth. Inversely, anything different from X equals false. If X equals truth, then B equals false. Q equals false. And X plus Q equals false. X plus Q might be closer to true than just Q, but it is still wrong by whatever Q is. Math. Let's make this easier to understand by using everyone's favorite mathematical standby, 2 plus 2 equals 4. 2 plus 2 equals 4. Thus, inversely, 2 plus 2 does not equal anything not 4. 2 plus 2 does not equal 7. It does not equal 128, and it does not equal Tuscaloosa, Alabama. 7 is closer to 4 than Tuscaloosa is, but it's still wrong by 3. Tuscaloosa is wrong for all sorts of reasons, but you have to admit it's fun to say Tuscaloosa. Try it. Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa. Here's where it gets entertaining. Let's now take the stance that Christians are arrogant and wrong and make that X. We're always solving for X, kids. That's how math works. Thus, Christians are arrogant and wrong to claim exclusive truth equals X. These people are saying X equals truth. But if they really believe what they say, X, then they're also claiming that anything not X equals false. They are saying that their position is true and the Christian worldview is false. This attack on Christianity is using the exact same thought process and the same logic to make the claim of exclusive truth, which they are condemning. It is a claim of exclusive truth, which implies that anyone who disagrees is wrong. Thus, the people who say Christians are arrogant and close-minded for saying that X equals truth and not X equals false are saying X equals truth and not X equals false. You can't argue with math, people. This is math. Besides, if you did argue with math, you'd just be substituting your anti-math stance for X, and you'd be no better than anyone else. In fact, you might be sillier than anyone else. Using math to disprove math is a bad plan, whatever your metaphysical stance on rubber ducks. To sum it up, it is not arrogance to say that something is true, and it is not arrogance to say that ideas opposed to truth are themselves false. It is impossible to call something true without calling others false. If you don't believe me, then go to dictionary.com and see for yourself. I don't know if you kids know this, but dictionaries used to be printed out on paper. Imagine. Where was I? When I finally get around to telling you that Jesus is the God, King, Prophet, and Savior of all, I am also saying that the flying spaghetti monster, aka Bruce, is not any of those things. That isn't arrogance, it's the nature of truth. Arrogance is telling people that they are fools to believe in Jesus because of how improbable the flying spaghetti monster is? As though you were an expert in everything simply because you have a British accent. But that's another blog for another day. By which I mean it's not a blog for today. You see how easy this is? Try it yourself sometime. You'll be the hit of any party. So cool. So proud of you guys. If you see the flying spaghetti monster at any of those parties, then I think you need to lay off the drugs, which aren't necessarily prescription, if you catch my meaning. And that's the truth.
Jesus loves you is the message we send. Thanks for letting me be your renter friend. You're listening to Renter Friend Radio.